An unprecedented bill worth over $37 trillion has recently been passed by the U.S. government, which will replace the present FedNate payment system with a next-generation system based on XRP. This new system will enable the transfer of over $37 trillion in US dollars across the XRP ledger, driving up the price of XRP to an astronomical $3,780. With an injection of $37 trillion expected this year, this is the very minimal baseline price. More and more news sources are reporting that the U.S. financial infrastructure is moving towards XRP, and this is just the beginning of the truly ridiculous news. According to Brad Gunninghouse, XRP is becoming increasingly popular among American banks, and he discusses the potential future of financial transactions using the XRP ledger. Not only that, but the largest bank in the world, Bank of America, verified live on Fox News that all of their internal transactions are processed using XRP and the XRP ledger. Furthermore, additional businesses have begun accepting XRP as payment, such as JP Chase. Rumor has it that even BlackRock is allegedly engaging in a strategy similar to this, where they are purchasing XRP on a modest dollar cost average basis. Therefore, they may possess 1 million XRP or more of the cryptocurrency. Let me take this to the next level. The topic of institutional adoption of XRP has come up again. Here is the report for your review. Brad Garling also presents XRP to a gathering of banking heavy hitters, which includes the likes of Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, and Ripple and Swift executives, among others. Not to mention the several other members of the International Settlement Center Association, ICE and the Congress. Those at the top of the financial food chain are these people. The creator and chief executive officer of Ripple Labs, Mr. Brad Greenhouse, has spoken publicly about XRP, stating that the transaction charges are 10. While XRP can settle that in 3 seconds for less than a penny, the process takes over 24 hours. We are seeing the adoption of XRP by these banking infrastructures, which is happening right now, and it will cause a huge shift in the scale of XRP that we will witness in the next days. Listen, before I play this clip, I have to tell you that we've teamed up with Uphold to offer free XRP to everyone who watches this video. Here is your opportunity to generate income with zero effort. This video may be yours simply by giving it a like, subscribing to the channel with your preferred alerts, sharing it with others. Most importantly, making a purchase on Uphold through the link I provided in the description. All told, it takes us 5 minutes to complete the process. It's essentially a gift of cash. It would be a great choice for you, so without further ado, let's dive in. Since its inception, this asset, XRP, has increased in value by more than 50%. Seriously, this is huge. More than 400% has been added to XRP's value in the past 12 months. However, the most insane aspect is the impending event, which will cause it to rise by hundreds of thousands of percentage points. It is anticipated that we will observe this in its literal form. First, we'll show you this footage. Then, we'll get into the details and tell you about the real price of XRP. Right now, XRP is a 50, but in a few weeks it will approach over 180 per XRP. This video is the proof that widespread adoption in the banking industry is happening right now. We can examine it. During my month-long fellowship at the Bank of England last year, I was required to prepay my rent. The process of transferring funds from the Bank of England to Santander UK took 1 day and cost $10. Therefore, I will not divulge the identity of the platform. My banking information is known to you. One issue with that deal was that the funds weren't protected for the whole 24 hours that they were in transit. Plus, for a copy editor in the Philippines, 10 might be a substantial sum. It seems like people are prone to exaggerating how serious the problem is, though. Hey Brad, I want to ask you something straight up. Distributing liquidity via the payment system is one of your goods, and Ripple is no exception. So, would a run on Ripple be possible? Put simply, your liquidity is in high demand. Because of the possibility that individuals may form suspicions, whether justified or not, regarding the system, no one is willing to supply it. So, to start, let's define what Ripple is. There is no liquidity provided by Ripple. You can tap into the market's liquidity with the help of Ripple's technologies. About $50 billion worth of digital assets changed hands in the past 24 hours on the market. That encompasses not only XRP but also Bitcoin, Ether, and the like. Is the widespread use of digital assets susceptible to a run? Ripple sells technologies, which is the nuanced question. Is Ripple vulnerable to a run? What does that look like? I have no idea. That is just too much for me to contemplate. Are digital assets vulnerable to a run? To clarify, I'm referring to the fact that individuals are once again redistributing $50 billion in liquidity today. 3 seconds is all it takes for an XRP settlement. The actual pricing is even more outrageous than this, I'm telling you. A lot of people, myself included, think that influencers who say things like "por $10 and per XRP" are just making it up. However, when a prominent venture capital firm, Valhalla Capital, and its managing director publicly state that XRP is not only priced between $10 and $35, but is also built to facilitate billions of dollars in transactions, the market becomes very heated. Holy cow, that's next level stuff. There are a lot of potential solutions to this, but one of them is the imposition of regulations. Unfortunately, we are aware that it is approaching soon, aren't we? I believe the global situation is such that a solution will be necessary. When I say imminent, I would be astonished if we are still involved in the SEC litigation a quarter from now. Similar to XRP in order to facilitate liquidity in the near future. Okay, so now the question is whether or not we've fixed it magically. What happens to the cost? You may probably guess that it's a 2-digit number. As a result, I believe it instantly skyrockets to a 10, maybe even 20D. For my part, the fact that a deal is actually in the works is the wild card. In order for XRP to serve as a neutral asset that governments and central banks can exchange with one another to convert fiat to another, thereby acting as a bridge currency for the global economy. Going back to our previous conversation, it needs to cover all the expenses. In my opinion, the range that XRP would agree upon is what you're seeing here. As a result, this would take place instantly with a price tag of $10 into $35,000. Additionally, our lifestyles will likely remain similar or diverge. I am uncertain. Most likely somewhat different. The amount about to be entered into the XRP ledger is 50 trillion. In fact, this is what will drive the price of XRP to 35,000 per, am I correct? When VCs quote prices like $10 or even 30,000 per XRP, it indicates a substantial amount of cash has to be linked to the XRP ledger. More than $4 trillion. It means that this is the market that will be flooding into the XRP ledger by the end of 2025, with $50 trillion flowing in. Here we have a tremendously large unlock. One of the businesses helping with this massive unlock is really one that you may be familiar with. When we talk about $50 trillion entering the XRP ledger, it would generate a price of 21,000 per XRP. So, let's talk about the size. They have been testing this 50 trillion flood into the XRP ledger for some time now. As evidenced by the latest XRP pricing problem, it has reached the point where it has caused an accident, costing 21,000 per XRP. Listen up, Rio 5, this is it. Rio 5 is undoubtedly already on your radar because they are releasing trillions of dollars onto the XRP blockchain. They have just released $2 billion for the market as a whole. They intend to add this 650 trillion market to the XRP ledger. And these individuals have the least amount available. Since most of their Phase 1 supply has been destroyed, they currently have approximately 22 million left. However, Realfy is doing all of the money transfer processing. Hey, we've seen this before. What I mean is that the XRP ledger is about to experience significant price spikes due to the influx of new transactions. Everything is transpiring via Real Token. In case you were unaware, Realfy is one of very few projects running on the XRP blockchain. At the very top of the list is this project. However, this is the sole XRP ledger project that is revolving around physical assets and properties. Consider it this way, for example, I am blown away. Look at Real Token, for example. It's in a retracement right now, but it might achieve size like nothing we've ever seen before.